So, in terms of the collaboration in the show, it was definitely a very new experience for me. I have never worked in this sort of creative way to make up the music as you go, and at first, I can definitely say I was very confused and sort of surprised, and I was a bit uncertain of my own abilities, especially when a lot of the responsibility fell on the people who did play one or more instruments, or the ones who were able to learn other instruments for this role. I was happy to play my ukulele at first, but when I found out that the nails were going to be a go, I couldn't practice because I wouldn't have been able to play. And in the second act, Steve had said, I had offered many times during rehearsals sort of to play any other instruments that people needed or learn the drums like some people did. But Steve had said that I shouldn't because he didn't want me on stage, which is fair enough. But because I couldn't play as many other instruments as the other people, I felt a little like I wasn't pulling my weight. This is why I focused a lot on my own personal character development sometimes and trying to find peace and understanding the show a lot because I felt so deer in headlights, like I couldn't contribute because it was so mixed media. It felt like I was a much smaller cog in the machine, which is true, which I wasn't upset about. It just was a very new way of working. I definitely learned the importance of having a plan. I understood that a lot of the time there wasn't going to ever be able to be the amount of communication needed to literally have all the ideas set in place and communicated in time, because Steve was on a literal show, so he couldn't physically be there. And sometimes those creative decisions that we would be confused about and worried about not knowing what Steve wanted in the music rehearsals, sometimes we couldn't avoid them, and I understood that. I think I felt tension from other people, getting the frustration of we need a leader, Callum can only do so much, he can't go too far beyond what Steve wants because then Steve will change it. And I think that mentality wasn't always the best to be surrounded by, so I tried to keep it peaceful for myself and trust that with the process we were going to have a show at the end. I think we relied so much on Callum for creating all the musical pieces and being able to sing all kinds of different harmonies for them that we felt prepared for Tech Week, and when we put everything together, when Steve was pulling out all these things on the moment to say like, okay, we want this piece of music in this scene at this time. So it felt, towards the end we were prepared, but at the beginning I don't think we knew what we were preparing for. And that type of leadership from Callum really helped us be able to stand on our own towards the end of rehearsals. I think that the time crunch became so real towards the end of tech rehearsals was very stressful because I was trying to keep peace in my head with the fact that it was a process that we were going through, and that Steve assured us that we were going to have more than enough time. But it's so different to having experiences where you feel so prepared during tech rehearsal and performing feels like second nature, whereas in a production like this where everything is literally up to the last minute by no one's fault except for time, which is something you can deal with, I think, with a strong ensemble. I think it's just a different feeling of nerves going into a show, and some people who are carrying a lot of the weight, which I was sad I couldn't carry more. There was times when I wish I could have contributed to figuring things out, because I knew if I was playing a certain instrument, it would feel like second nature at that point in the show. Or to just be able to help, because I know that sometimes it would be 5-10 brains crunching together what exactly the cue was for a specific line or somewhat other thing. And I wish I could have been one of those heads thinking with people. It's hard to remember parts that you're not in if you haven't rehearsed them all together as a group. And a lot of the time where the music was taking more part or the video design was taking more part, there's no way I could have or should have had those things in my mind, because that would have probably been disruptive or in someone's way if I just wanted to sit there and watch when I needed to be backstage. It definitely feels like it was worth it at the end, as much as it was stressful for some periods of time that didn't feel that stressful due to how we dealt with them. And I think dealing with them as a strong ensemble does also justify it just as much as the final product of the show. By performance time, it didn't even feel like we had this beautiful art piece or anything. It just felt like a lot of hard work had gone into it, and that we had something to present that was meaningful and not and sort of creative and very artistic. And I think that translated to people, as much as some people might not have understood the play. I think they could tell that with so much hard work had been put into it, into creating these beautiful sound melodies and harmonies and transitions and video, that I think that, coupled with the strong work ethic and strong ensemble that we had, does justify it more than being some very marketable show or other parameters of success. I think it's probably something that I can expect more in my future as an actor, as a creative, due to always the never-ending time and budget constraints. I think that doesn't look like it's disappearing anytime soon politically. In this day and age, it's very common for the arts to be underfunded and to not have enough time to complete and finish products, or to have this perfectly curated thing. And maybe we don't need that either. Sometimes it is very good and interesting work to have things unfinished or barely polished or just finished be presented to an audience. I think maybe that also makes it a bit more raw and a bit more interesting. And what art is for, to experiment and to express. And sometimes those expressions can't be perfect, and that's fine. So I definitely felt like we learned that in this project. And because we were working with such an ensemble, the people you spend 3 whole years studying together in this period of time with, it's unlike any other ensemble that you're going to be a part of. As students in your undergrad, it's not just another show that you'll do professionally with a group of people you've just met. It's, as much as you can form other better or bigger friendships, this is something that means something to the start of your career. It's what who you trained with. And I think that those 3 years were the preparation, in a way, to making sure that we could do the show. And it was a very incredible experience. I can only learn from it and say, oh yeah, I would probably prepare things more if I was a director, but I can't imagine the amount of preparation that Steve already did beforehand and during, that we didn't see, simply because he wasn't in the room. So I think there's a lot to learn from these things, and the show especially is going to stay with me because of that.